Two political action committees based in Maine have raised nearly $1 million so far for the non-existent opponent of Senator Susan Collins if she votes to confirm Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. The Daily Beast reports that the groups, along with progressive activist Andy Barkan, have come together to, quote, crowdfund in support of the senator's Democratic opponent in 2020. The group states that Kavanaugh's potential votes on issues such as abortion access and health care are, quote, a threat to everyday Mainers like us. If Collins does, in fact, vote against the Supreme Court nominee, the group pledges to return the funds to its donors. Joining us now, law professor at George Washington University, Jonathan Turley. His new column in The Hill is entitled, "Can Susan Collins Afford Political Gamble to Back the Right to Choose?" Also with us, Washington bureau chief for USA Today, Susan Page, and commentary writer for the Washington Examiner, Tom Rogan. Good to have you all on board with us this morning. And Jonathan Turley, I think I'll start with you just about the Brett Kavanaugh's positions versus the votes that may come in for or against him. But has he expressed exactly where he stands on some key fundamentals, even pertaining to our Constitution? I was listening to his testimony and trying to have an open mind, but I can't figure out where he stands on basics.
Well, that's it. I mean, the confirmation hearings have been reduced now to virtually no substance at all. I mean, we essentially take nominees like Kavanaugh and turn them into sort of Chauncey Gardner of being there, where they say, yes, Charles, Roe v. Wade is an old case. It's a case in the books. It's a law case. And everyone says, wow, okay. And Collins says, that's very reassuring. It's all a rather weird exercise where we do this. And quite frankly, if this is what confirmation hearings are going to be about, why do them? I mean, they're now just basically there for the senators. And we learn nothing because the Senate has taken this Ginsburg rule, where the rule says that nominees don't have to discuss cases that may come before them. And they have ripped out virtually all the content of confirmation hearings. So you're supposed to vote on a nominee who will not really discuss in any detail his interpretive approach to the Constitution.
Yeah, so
exactly.
Susan Page, Susan Collins has been a pro-choice Republican for some time now. It's been an issue that's identified her with a lot of people in Maine and allowed some moderate Democrats to support her in at least their own mind. How important is this Kavanaugh vote, and why does it seem that she is headed towards supporting him when he's brought up a lot of things during the hearings that would cause great concern to those who believe his vote would overturn Roe v. Wade?
You know, I think Senator Collins has indicated she's persuaded by the idea that Roe v. Wade is settled law, although Judge Kavanaugh has refused to say whether he thinks it was correctly decided, which might have been the more pertinent question. But there are, in fact, no signs that, while Senator Collins hasn't said how she's going to vote, there really haven't been signs that she's going to vote against Judge Kavanaugh. And that means, number one, that Republicans likely are able to confirm him on their own. And it also means that it probably clears the way for a couple conservative Democrats in tough Senate reelection fights to vote for him as well. I think it is entirely likely that this is a confirmation that will move forward on at least a modestly bipartisan basis, and that we expect, barring some new disclosure, for him to be on the court when the Supreme Court reconvenes on the first Monday in October.
Well, Tom Rogan, that's what I was going to ask you. There was a lot of sound and fury over the last week, a lot of document dumps and I am Spartacus moments and parsing of emails from 15 years ago. Bottom line it, though, is there any chance that Kavanaugh will not be confirmed here?
Unless we see something substantial in terms of previous records that haven't been released, no, I don't think so. And I think that's for two reasons. First, it is the effective unity of the Republican caucus in terms of support for Kavanaugh. It's obviously also the influence of a number of Democratic senators who are likely to vote for Kavanaugh. But as a secondary point, the Republican Party, as it moves into the midterm elections and the presidency, understand that this is prospectively an easy win for them with the conservative base as a get out the vote thing. So there is a lot of momentum to try and resolve this issue and to push back against Democrats where Democrats somewhat rightly are asking for more documentation.
You know, John Heilman, Steve Schmidt had a really tough tweet a couple days ago about Susan Collins, basically saying that her support said the point about Collins and Murkowski's impending vote for Kavanaugh exposes them as titanic frauds who have gamed the choice issue for their personal benefit for decades. Sincere people have committed points of view on this difficult issue. These two are not amongst them. And you really do have to ask if they have branded themselves as a different kind of Republican, as pro-choice Republicans. It seems to me that you can say, I believe in deferring to the president on Supreme Court picks, or you can say, you know what, I can't vote for him because I don't think he'll uphold Roe v. Wade. But these two don't seem to be choosing door one or door two. It sounds a bit murky in both of their cases.
Right. They seem, Joe, they want to have it both ways, or to put it another way, it seems like essentially they want to have plausible deniability. They want to be able to say that they're pro-choice. They want to look for something that Kavanaugh has said that allows them to feel, or at least to project the notion that they feel assured on this matter, even though there's not really any concrete reason to think that we really know where Kavanaugh is. And I want to ask Jonathan Turley a question. Professor, I'm not a lawyer and not a constitutional scholar, but I did note that someone yesterday made the point that in the course of these hearings, I wanted to talk about Roe in particular because it's so much the cornerstone of the Democratic attempt, as difficult as it is to try to stop Kavanaugh, made the point that Kavanaugh, in a colloquy with Ted Cruz in the hearings, suggested that his view about unenumerated rights, which include the right to privacy and therefore would cover Roe v. Wade, that the test he would apply was related to a Supreme Court case called Glucksberg. In that case, said that you could only find unenumerated rights in the Constitution if they're well embedded in tradition and history, and that he'd given a speech a year earlier at the American Enterprise Institute in which he suggested that Roe v. Wade and Casey did not meet the Glucksberg standard. So I asked this question to you. Is that not, I'm a little confused about why this has not become a bigger issue, but did he not sort of tip his hand if it is the case that Glucksberg is what the standard he's going to use, that he's not basically saying, I don't find a right to privacy that would cover Roe?
Well, I think what you can get from the hearing, but also what you certainly get from the writings and comments before, is that he clearly is hostile to Roe v. Wade. I don't think that the Democrats are right about some of the things that they've cited as clearly indicating he'll vote against Roe v. Wade. But if you look at his interpretive approach, he clearly agrees with Rehnquist's approach in cases like Roe v. Wade, in dissent, about unenumerated rights. And that's one of the sort of disconnects about the position of Collins and Murkowski, that it now appears that nothing short of a confession is going to really trigger that pledge made to support Roe v. Wade. Well, they're not going to wheel in a nominee like Hannibal Lecter and say, you know, I'm going to eat Roe v. Wade with a Chianti. They're all going to say it's settled law. But, you know, Kavanaugh said in one of his memos that settled law is basically settled till it's not, that the Supreme Court, once it gets a majority, can flip the result. And in favor of Kavanaugh, I have to say, there are plenty of lawyers and judges that believe that Roe was wrongly decided. And I think that he's likely to take an approach that will be hostile to Roe.
Tom, Elise Jordan here. Do you think that it's more in the Democrats' best interest to just move beyond the Kavanaugh nomination and to understand that it's pretty likely to happen, and that the longer they spend contesting the nomination and fighting the nomination, that's less time that they're spent working on their wave election?
No, because I think the two go hand in hand. I mean, we were discussing this on the McLaughlin group this weekend, and the issue is that you have a real passion on the part of Democrats, regardless of their views of President Trump, quite frankly, in terms of the political organization of the Democratic Party, to oppose any prospective change to Roe v. Wade, any undercutting of that. And so in opposing Brett Kavanaugh in the run-up to this midterm election, in the same way that for the Republican Party, confirming Kavanaugh is beneficial, I think the two go hand in hand. It is a way to mobilize that agenda, even if prospectively it's firing shots in the dark with very little chance of hitting anything.
All right, Tom Rogan, Jonathan Turley, thank you. Susan Page, hoping you're able to stay with us. Still ahead, the White House says President Trump got a warm letter from Kim Jong-un requesting another summit.
How nice.
We'll talk to a member of the House Armed Services Committee about whether a second meeting is a good idea. Helsinki. Plus, last week, a slew of polls showed President Trump's approval rating hovering in the 30s. New polls this week show things haven't really improved for him. We'll dig into those new numbers next on Morning Joe.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.